Hey, we're World Entertainment, and Hollywood isn't in a good place at the moment. One might say it's burning. You know, they're throwing so much money at budgets for movies that end up tanking, and they're just going out of their way to alienate people and everything else, and everything becomes political and identity politics and all the rest. The one thing you think they would try and avoid is to call out and insult your customers. But unfortunately, they're doing the exact opposite of that. And there's an article that has now shown up on Variety that we're going to have a look at that goes over this. That just wants to call everything toxic fandom. Yeah, they're rearing their stupid little heads up again about this crap. And this is co-written by that idiot on the red carpet for Agatha all along. You know, this one.
Agatha is the gayest project Marvel has ever done. Agree?
Yeah, because all they want to focus on is the identity politics and stuff. But once we start calling it out, all of a sudden we're toxic, we're this, we're that. And the irony is, and you'll see throughout this article, how they're trying to paint all of us, not just here on YouTube, but everyone who goes and pays their hard-earned money to see these films or turns on the TV to watch these shows and play these games and all this stuff, that if we say we don't like this product, how we're toxic, yet they're the ones who start calling us the names first. So here's the headline that Variety has that reads, "Toxic Fandom, How Hollywood is Battling Fans Who Are Just Out for Blood, From Social Media Boot Camps to Superfan Focus Groups." Now, when they're saying social media boot camps and superfan focus groups, that's not talking about they are the people who are being called toxic fandom. No, this is what Hollywood wants to start using to try and get around what they deem toxic fans. Yeah. So let's actually jump into this article, which is just some of the most window-licking crap you've ever heard. I'm surprised. Well, of course, it's on their website, so obviously it looks like it was typed out, but I guarantee you these idiots wrote it in crayon. That's how moronic it is. So it says, guess how it starts. On August 28th, Amanda Stenberg, the lead of Star Wars series The Akashite, posted an 8.5-minute video to her Instagram stories about Lucasfilm's abrupt decision not to pick up the show for a second season just a month after the final season streamed on Disney+. Is it abrupt? They would have been seeing what numbers they were getting. They would have seen that they weren't getting numbers to justify spending $230 million on this show. So it's not that abrupt. And it's funny how they start off with Amanda Stenberg. And then they have this, what she said. "It's not a huge shock for me," Stenberg said. "Since the series was announced in 2020, she continued, we started experiencing a rampage of, I would say, hyper-conservative bigotry and vitriol, prejudice, hatred, and hateful language towards us." Get this, Stenberg was unavailable to comment for this story. Wow, it's almost like she threw all this crap out and then went, "I'm walking away." It's also funny that they never in this article addressed the fact that, yeah, how about the fact that 1, she never proved it, 2, she never showed any receipts to say any of this happened, like that she got all this vitriol and stuff sent towards her, and 3, that she actually put out a diss track 2 episodes into the Akashite, running her mouth about Star Wars fans. Amazing that. And he continues saying, "In other words, the Akashite, as I'm going to constantly call it, was the latest high-profile target of quote-unquote toxic fandom. The catch-all term for when fan criticism curdles from good faith dissatisfaction into a relentless, negative, often bigoted online campaign against either the project or its stars or creative leads. In a franchise economy increasingly dependent upon established audience devotion to drive the bottom line, the heart of toxic fandoms poisoning the enthusiasm has become a seemingly intractable headache for almost every studio, and it's only getting worse. Except for the fact that everything they said there, oh, we need the devoted audience. And your way to do that is to alienate that audience. You know, the Star Wars audience that was so devoted to that franchise, they bought all the merchandise, the collectibles, the posters, they saw every movie, they bought every single edition of the movie you put out, whether it was on VHS, DVD, Blu-ray, streaming, you name it, they bought it. They contribute so much of their time and effort into it. And what did Kathleen Kennedy do? Turned around and said, there's more Star Wars ahead of us than behind us. We need to forget about the 40-year-old somethings. Yeah, so that's you removing your devoted audience. You bought the franchise not just because you wanted the franchise, but you bought it because you knew it came with a built-in audience. But unfortunately, for some reason, the very first thing you did was tell that audience it's no longer for them. But then when all your stuff is failing, you want to turn around and blame that very audience that you told to go away. It doesn't work. Let's continue. It says, it comes with the territory, but it's gotten incredibly loud in the last couple of years, says a veteran marketing executive at a major studio. This guy gets paid to turn around and tell his bosses, people don't like our crap. Amazing. So people are just out for blood regardless. They think the purity of the first version will never be replaced, or you've done something to upset the canon of a beloved franchise, and they're going to take you down for doing so. Yes is the answer to all of that. You will never be able to recapture and redo what a first beloved version has done. And as for changing canon, what's the point of having canon if you just can willy-nilly go in and change it? Doesn't work like that. If you establish that these are the particular rules in this particular franchise, you can't just go in and change it and then try and say, oh, yous are just being angry. And we know the reason they wanted to stop canon and change canon and all stuff is because they've said it flat out. Alex Kurtzman took the mask off and let it slip when he said, canon is hard. Are you kidding me? They put out an episode of Star Trek Discovery, and within 15 minutes, Major Grimm has a video comparing what they've ripped off, what was done better, and how it affects canon on YouTube. So they can't figure out canon, but YouTubers can within an hour of your show being out. Like, come on. As for the purity of the first version will never be replaced. Exactly. You never will. Is it interesting how many of the movies they're deciding to remake and recast? Oh, we're just going to take that white person out and change it to be black. We're going to take that guy out and change it to be a woman. We're going to make this straight couple a gay couple now. They're doing it with all movies that aren't that old. Isn't it amazing how movies that would be, as he says, purity of the first version, you know, something like what people will regard as some of the best, like Gone with the Wind and stuff like that. How come they never remake any of that stuff and change every single facet of the story? Because that's what they do. They go in and they change every single element and then criticize you for not accepting what they did. When we sit down and go, the original is better. Now, apparently, if we do that, we're toxic. Are you kidding? You can't go in and do this and then blame the audience for rejecting it, especially when they didn't ask for it in the first place. Let's see what else they have to say. Sometimes toxic fandoms behave reactively. A House of the Dragon episode featuring 2 female characters kissing, and an episode of The Last of Us focusing on a gay couple were both review bombed. The practice of mobbing sites like Rotten Tomatoes and IMDb with negative user reviews, which gained mainstream attention following the premiere of 2017's Star Wars The Last Jedi. And an entire YouTube ecosystem is devoted to declaring projects like The Marvels and The Boys woke garbage. Everything there, every single thing in that statement is wrong. Nobody had an issue with two females kissing in House of the Dragon. The issue they had was what the characters who did it were. That Rhaenyra should never have been kissing the White Worm, or whatever she was called. I can't think of the character's actual name. Because it was the case of this character has been elevated to a position that she should never be and never was in the books. And it just came out of nowhere. That's what people's argument was. It wasn't like, oh my god, they did a gay kiss. Especially seeing as in the first season you had plenty of gay scenes with guys. Guess what didn't happen? Backlash. As for The Last of Us, the criticism for that episode was, one, the showrunner came out and said he purposely made an entire episode about that to sneak in a gay story. But the problem was it stopped the actual show moving forward, and because of the way they did it and they killed the characters off, they took away the relationships between those characters and the main characters from the game. Because Ellie and what was his name? Not Frank. Frank was the other one, wasn't it? I can't think of what the other one's name. Or maybe it is Frank. One of them. That they had this weird relationship that was people enjoyed in the game and stuff. You robbed the audience of that. And you literally came out right after it came out. People were like, what the hell is this episode? Like, why is there this gay utopia in the middle of the apocalypse where they're saying like, oh, no zombies ever come here, and yet there's a city right next to them. And the showrunner turns around and said, oh yeah, we purposely did that to sneak in a gay episode to force you to watch a gay relationship. That's where the argument comes from that. As for the review bombing comment, it's always amazing that they say it's review bombing. When you look at these sites and people give it a 1.5 star to 2 stars, and they give out a thought out rational reasoning why they dislike something. They don't just write, it sucks, 1 star. No, they give out an actual thought out what their feelings are, why it doesn't work for them, all that stuff. Compare that to the positive reviews that they never say is positive review bombing. Because what happens? You look and you see these statements that give 5 stars and it simply says, I enjoyed it. That's it. That's an entire review. And yet it boosts up the scores for these movies. As for the Marvels and the boys, no, they just became garbage. That's it. So just as frequently, the backlash begins before the project has even seen the light of day. A Reddit mega thread dedicated to outrage over, get this, Bridgerton, casting a black woman as the love interest for Francesca. Social media, so that's talking about Bridgerton. Is there backlash to Bridgerton? Okay, whatever. And then it says that there's social media things directed at the actors of colour cast as elves and dwarfs in the Rings of Power. Death threats aimed at Leslie Jones during the press tour for 2016's Ghostbusters. These idiots have even gone as far back as 2016. 8.5 years ago, they're going back to. Leslie Jones, by the way, back then, never showed any evidence of her getting death threats. The cast that they're saying, oh, they're getting harassment for elves and dwarfs in Rings of Power, never showed any evidence. Also, they ignore the fact that those actors came out first and just ran their mouth about colour and being seen for the first time in 2021. They were oh my god, it's about time we finally see some black elves, and people were just like, what? Even though there was all these characters and races in Lord of the Rings that you could have made black characters with, they didn't do that. They went, no, we specifically want to put them into areas where they don't belong, and it's stupid. And then it says, perhaps the greatest irony of this phenomenon is the disproportionate impact these toxic fandoms have relative to their actual numbers. Now, this part is the main part I want to get to, because this is hilarious. So it says, the vast majority of any fandom are casual fans, says John Van Sitters, VP of Star Trek brand development, who has been with the storied franchise since the 90s. He continued, the number of people who live and die on their franchises are very, very few. And then those who come after things that they espouse to love with venom are a really, really tiny subset of that already smaller subset of fandom. It's just much easier to see it now. I don't know that it's really that much broader than where things were in 95. It's just that the bullhorn wasn't there. Now, bullhorn, of course, is social media and the internet and all that stuff. Everything that idiot just said, number one, shows how much of a clown he is, and fire this person. Because if he's your brand development vice president, holy crap. It's no wonder Star Trek is in the position it is. To say a franchise that has lasted over 50 years is based on casual fans. That is the dumbest thing I think I've ever read. To say the vast majority of any fandom are casual fans. You realize the word fan is short for fanatic, because they love something so much. And then he says, like, the people who was like want to live, breathe and die the franchise is even fewer. So he's literally saying that all these programs, movie franchise, everything, James Bond, Doctor Who, Star Trek, Star Wars, all that stuff, X-Files, it's lasted as long as it has. It's still in the minds of people. People still talk about it. People still rewatch it. All that stuff. Is casual fans? No, it absolutely is not. A casual fan doesn't watch every episode. They don't talk about it. And there's definitely not enough of them to make your franchises a success and to continue going. And then what's hilarious about all of this is they end up talking about, we're not going through all this article because it's bloody huge and a waste of time, but they end up doing that thing of going, the voices are being heard are very small and have no impact whatsoever, which is all of us. They're talking about us, the fan bases. We're here on YouTube, you guys at home, everybody. Anyone who pays to go and see these things, who's a fan of these things, we're such an insignificant voice that it doesn't bother them. And yet, they also try and say that we are such a problem that Hollywood is terrified to even speak about us or to do anything that would piss us off. Which is why they want to start this story group and all this crap to try and not speak and upset all of us. We'll look at this part that talks about this a bit. So it says, still, toxic fandoms have grown so pernicious that they've become a fact of life for many, and so powerful that while talent, executives and publicists will privately bemoan the issue, fear of inadvertently triggering another backlash kept several studios from speaking for this story, even on background. As one rep put it, it's just a lose-lose. Those who did talk with Variety all agree, by the way, they never mention who spoke with any of them. Like, they don't mention any studios, who these people are or anything. So it says, to those who did talk to Variety, all agree that the best defense is to avoid provoking fandoms in the first place. In addition to standard focus group testing, studios will assemble a specialized cluster of superfans to assess possible marketing materials for a major franchise project. There's already so many issues with that. Now, you hear there how they said, we've become so powerful that the executives, the talent involved with these things, everything, are privately kind of going, oh no, they're like, oh, they're just idiots. And yet they're terrified to actually come out and upset the fan base. You know what you should be doing? You should be fearing a fan base, because we are the paying customer. We decide whether your product succeeds or whether your product fails. That's the only actual power we have. All them morons that jumped on to Twitter and TikTok and everywhere else and YouTube and said, we got the Acolyte cancelled. No, we didn't. We had absolutely no influence in the $1 billion company that is Disney deciding to cancel it. Especially when those morons were the very same people who said this.
There are more of us.
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 Yeah, we're not going to forget that one anytime soon. If there was more of them, how come none of them showed up? How come their voices weren't so loud that Disney went, it's okay, we'll pump another 230 million into this garbage fest that nobody watched? It's interesting. You can't have it both ways. You can't say we are an insignificant number who are just loud but the studios ignore, while at the same time saying we are the reason everything is failing. We had the power to do all this. We destroyed it. We've made them change their minds. We've had shows cancelled and everything else. Which is it? Is it we're so small, insignificant that you just ignore it? Or is it that we're so vocal and so powerful that you are actively cancelling your shows and movies and whatnot? How exactly is a handful of people on social media, how are we the thing that is taking down and have trembling in fear a multi-billion-dollar industry like Hollywood? To say, well, the best thing to do is not do anything to piss the fans off. Yeah, exactly. That's why we're fans. We don't want any of this stuff to be terrible. Get that into your heads. We don't want you to announce a new Star Wars for us to be able to sit here and roll our eyes and go, oh Christ, not again. Here we go. We know exactly what we're going to get. We don't want that. We want to have it come out, love it, and go, my God, that was fantastic. Oh, I hope they bring Hot Toys out on that stuff. We don't want to hate any of this. But it's the fact that you, Hollywood, and you, Access Media, yous were the ones who took the first shots. What you don't like is that we pushed back. And that's the issue, especially with articles like this, because this article is just talking about how fearful they are that all of us, not just here on YouTube, but you guys as well, all are the ones who are making our own decisions. We're not listening to them anymore. They're turning around saying, this franchise is so fantastic because they did this. You should all love it. We all have the power and our own thought process to be able to go in, look at it, walk out and go, that sucked. And here's why we think it sucked. And it's not, oh, if there's black people in it, I hate this movie, while other movies with black characters succeed. How? Or did the racists take the day off, did they? No, it doesn't work like that. So you need to understand. And as for your focus groups, the problem is you're just going to get in the yes people. You're going to bring in the likes of the Disney shills who just will love everything and anything to get access. And they're the people you're going to bring in. You're not going to bring in the everyday Joe Soap out in the street and go, hey, we need you to come in and sit down here and have a look at this and tell us your honest thoughts. No, they're going to get the people coming in who are yes people. Oh, we love this. And they're just going to continue then to pump money into garbage. And when it gets rejected, we're going to get branded toxic fandom. It's such a disaster. They're such a joke. And at this stage, go away. So, with that, this is a long ass video. Didn't mean it to be that long, but there's a lot to be talked about. I will leave it there for this one. So like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. Cheers, and I will catch you in the next one.